Look, if you're starting 2026 with literally $0 and you're panicking about how anyone can possibly get rich, I get it. You see people on social media flaunting their six-figure accounts, talking about passive income streams and early retirement, and you think to yourself, how am I supposed to compete with that? I don't have money. I don't have time. I don't even have the energy to figure out where to start. The thing that nobody tells you about building wealth from absolutely nothing is that being broke is actually your biggest competitive advantage if you know how to use it. Most wealthy people had some kind of head start, inheritance, family connections, or at least a few $1,000s to bootstrap with. You don't have that, which means you can't make stupid mistakes that cost six figures. You can't blow your inheritance on a depreciating asset. You can't inherit bad money habits from rich parents. You're starting from a blank slate. My name is Ian, and I help people understand that wealth isn't some mysterious thing that happens to other people. It's a skill. It's a system. And if you're willing to be different from 99% of people for the next 3 to 5 years, you can absolutely go from zero to genuine wealth faster than most people think possible. If you're tired of watching your bank account stay empty while other people compound their way to freedom, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button, because I'm about to show you exactly how the poor people who become rich actually do it. Most people think getting rich is about one big win, some lottery ticket moment where everything changes, a business idea that explodes, a crypto investment that moons, some stock pick that turns $100 into 100,000. That's not how it works. That's not even close to how it works. Getting rich from zero is about understanding three fundamental things that the broke and the wealthy understand differently. The first thing is that your income is your most powerful wealth building tool when you have nothing. I know that sounds crazy. I know everyone tells you to invest your money and let compound interest work its magic. And compound interest is absolutely magical. But compound interest only becomes powerful after you have something to compound. When you're starting from zero, you don't have compound interest. You have the opposite. You have negative cash flow. You're probably spending every dollar you make just to survive. So the absolute first move when you're starting from nothing is brutally simple and absolutely unsexy. You need to increase your income, not your passive income, not your investment returns, not royalties. You need to get paid more money in actual cash in your actual bank account right now. This is where most motivational content gets it wrong. They talk about budgeting and cutting expenses like that's the thing that turns poor people into rich people. You could cut your expenses down to nothing, live in your parents' basement, eat rice and beans every meal, and if you're making minimum wage, you'll still be broke forever. 40 hours a week at $15 an hour is about $600 per week before taxes. After taxes, depending on your location, deductions, and withholding, you're often looking at closer to $400 to $450. The math on that doesn't change. You can't make six figures by cutting expenses. You make six figures by doing things that pay six figures. The difference between the person who stays broke and the person who gets rich is often just which direction they pointed their effort. The poor person thinks, how can I make my $1,000 last longer? The person building wealth thinks, how can I make $20,000 instead of $1,000? Your first mission, and this should literally be your obsession for the next 6 to 12 months, is figuring out a way to earn at least double what you currently make. That could be a side hustle. That could be picking up a second job. That could be learning skills that make you more valuable to employers. That could be starting a freelance service. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you understand your time has value and you need to monetize it beyond whatever your current job is paying you. If you're making $20,000 a year, you need to get to $40,000. If you're making $40,000, you need to get to $80,000. This sounds impossible if you're only working 40 hours a week. And in most cases, it is impossible if you stay permanently locked into a single capped income stream, which is why people who build wealth don't rely forever on a full-time job mentality. They work more or they work smarter, usually both. The beautiful thing about being young and broke is that you have the most valuable commodity in the universe, and you're probably wasting it. Time. You have decades of earning potential in front of you. You have evenings, you have weekends, you have the ability to choose temporary intensity and short-term discomfort in exchange for long-term freedom. You have the ability to say no to things that don't make you money so you can say yes to things that do. The reason most people stay broke isn't because it's impossible to earn more. It's because they don't psychologically believe they're allowed to earn more. They were raised thinking one job equals one income, and that's just how life works. But the people who escape poverty understand something different. They understand that money is a direct exchange for value. If you provide double the value, you can make double the money. It's not cheating. It's not unfair. It's literally how the system works. The guy working a 9 to 5 earning 30 grand probably thinks the guy earning 90 grand is somehow smarter or better. Maybe he is. but more likely he's just willing to do things the 30 grand guy refuses to do. He'll take on risk, he'll work extra hours, he'll learn new skills, he'll hustle in ways most people think are beneath him or impossible. There are people earning six figures on side hustles while keeping their day jobs. There are people running freelance services that pay more per hour than corporate jobs. There are people learning high-income skills, coding, copywriting, digital marketing, sales, can dramatically change their earning trajectory over the next 1 to 2 years. The income is out there. The question is whether you're willing to go get it. When you commit to doubling your income, you're not just changing a number on a paycheck. You're changing how you think. You're starting to believe that your financial situation is a choice, not a destiny. Once you've doubled your income, the second thing you need to understand is the importance of managing your cash flow with almost obsessive detail. This is where having nothing becomes a serious advantage. When you have nothing, you're forced to be intentional about every dollar. Rich people often lose this advantage. They have so much money that they get careless. They don't know where it's going. Expenses creep up quietly. You can't afford that problem. Most people have budgeting backward. They think budgeting is about deprivation and cutting things out. That's not budgeting, that's self-punishment. Real budgeting is about allocation and intention. It's about saying, okay, this is how much money I have. Where is the best place to deploy it to build wealth? The first allocation is always non-negotiable. Emergency savings. Not leftovers, not whatever's left at the end of the month. First priority, automatically. Your income needs to have a portion that goes directly to emergency savings before you ever see it. I'm not talking about retirement accounts yet. I'm talking about boring, accessible cash savings. 3 to 6 months of bare minimum expenses. For many people starting from nothing, that might be $3,000 to $5,000. It depends entirely on your actual cost of living. Get that before you do anything else. The psychology of having an emergency fund is wildly underrated. When you have $3,000 in the bank that you never touch, it changes how you make decisions. Suddenly, you're not desperate for every dollar. You can say no to bad jobs. You can leave toxic situations without immediately panicking. You can take calculated risks because you have a financial cushion. This is the first time in your life where you have actual options. That's not a small thing. That's the thing that separates people who take control of their financial destiny from people who get buffeted around by circumstances. Once you have emergency cash, the next allocation is the most important wealth-building move you can make at your income level. You need to have an amount of money that you're deliberately putting toward learning and skill development. This is the one thing that absolutely separates people who escape poverty from people who stay trapped. The wealthy understand that education never stops. They invest thousands every year in courses, coaching, mentors, books, conferences, and skill development. Most broke people think education is something that happened to them in school and now it's over. It's not over. Your education determines your earning potential. If you can invest $1,000 or $2,000 in learning a specific high-income skill, that investment can dramatically increase your income over the next 1 to 2 years. That's a return that stocks would kill for. Most people won't do this because it feels like money leaving their account with no guaranteed return. But that's exactly the wrong way to think about it. Your skill is the return. Your ability to do something valuable is the asset. When you're starting from nothing, you don't have capital to invest in the stock market yet. You have your brain. You have your time. The best investment you can possibly make is one that increases the value of your brain and multiplies the value of your time. This is why people who learn valuable skills escape poverty, while people who stay in survival mode their entire lives never develop any skills worth anything. The difference between the person who takes a $50 course in digital marketing and the person who doesn't is literally thousands of dollars in future income. The difference between learning to sell and not learning to sell is potentially life-changing. The difference between understanding business fundamentals and staying ignorant about them is the difference between being an employee forever and potentially becoming an owner. These aren't passive things that happen to you. These are active choices where you deliberately use your increased income to amplify your future earning potential. After emergency funds and education, the third allocation is living expenses. Here's where having nothing actually gives you a massive advantage. Poor people already know how to live cheap. Rich people often don't. You can survive and actually be happy $30,000 or $40,000 a year in most parts of the country. You can do it on even less if you have roommates or live strategically. The person who figures out how to live well on $30,000 while earning $50,000 is building wealth. The person who figures out how to live well on $80,000 while earning $100,000 is building wealth. The lifestyle has to be intentional and boring. Not deprived, boring. You're not trying to have the coolest apartment. You're not trying to wear the newest clothes. You're not trying to signal status. You're trying to build wealth. For every dollar you spend on status signaling, you're spending a dollar that could have been invested. Over 10 years, that dollar becomes $2. Over 20 years, it becomes $4. The small decisions compound like crazy in both directions. Living below your increased means is the third piece of cash flow management. Now we get to the third fundamental thing you need to understand: when and how to deploy capital into wealth-building investments. This is where most financial advice gets the order completely wrong. They try to get broke people to invest in index funds and retirement accounts when the person is still earning $12,000 a year. That doesn't make sense. You can't compound your way to wealth when you're struggling to eat. You first need surplus cash flow. That means your income is significantly higher than your expenses. This usually doesn't happen until you've been executing on the first 2 points for at least a year. Once you've doubled or tripled your income, built a proper emergency fund, and developed skills that give you options, that's when investing starts to matter. And the beautiful thing about investing when you're starting from nothing is that your risk tolerance is different. Someone with $1 million is terrified of losing 50,000 of it. Someone starting from zero doesn't have 50,000 to lose. That means you can take bigger calculated risks. You can invest in higher risk, higher return assets. You can learn and make mistakes. You can experiment. Real estate is possible. Direct stock investing is possible. Starting a business with minimal capital is possible. The mechanism matters less than understanding that the wealth you build from your increased income is where compound interest finally becomes your friend. Here's where most investment advice goes wrong for people starting from nothing. They tell you to max out retirement accounts, invest in index funds, and never touch the money for 40 years. That's terrible advice if you don't have enough income to fund those accounts and still live. It's like telling someone who's drowning to wait for the ocean to recede. You can't prioritize retirement accounts while you're still trying to build basic financial stability. Instead, you want investments you can actually understand, manage, and access if necessary. Index funds are great after you've hit a certain income threshold. Before that, you want vehicles where your skills directly influence returns. Direct stock investing in companies you understand. Real estate, small business ownership. Real estate is especially powerful because it's one of the few ways to control assets worth far more than your personal net worth. In some markets and loan programs, if you've been aggressively saving $15,000 to $20,000 per year and you have stable income, you can potentially put down $5,000 to $10,000 and control a property worth significantly more. That leverage accelerates wealth, but only if used responsibly. Now let's do the math to show why the order matters so much. Say you go from making $20,000 a year to $50,000 a year. That's $30,000 in additional income. If you aggressively save 50% of that increase, you're investing $15,000 per year. $15,000 per year over 10 years with average market returns puts you around $200,000. Over 20 years at roughly 7% average returns, you're looking at well over $500,000. By year 5, you're approaching 6 figures. That's leverage. That's optionality. That's the point where investing starts opening doors instead of just being a theory. By year 10, you have a serious amount of capital to deploy. Real estate, business, or continued skill development that compounds income even further. The compound effect of income growth plus investment returns is absolutely ridiculous. But none of this works unless you engineer the income first. Without doubling or tripling income, the math breaks. Without disciplined cash flow management, the money disappears. Without skill development, you never get to higher income in the first place. This is why the order matters. You can't skip to step 3 and invest your way out of a low-income situation. It doesn't work mathematically. People who try usually blow the investments on lifestyle or make bad decisions because they haven't built discipline yet. The order is critical. And when you get it right, the second order effects are wild. Once compound growth stacks on top of increased income, results start accelerating. You're earning more money and that money is working for you. Your net worth stops growing linearly and starts bending upward. This is when the psychology shifts. You stop feeling broke, not because you're rich yet, but because you know the system works. You've already proven it. Here's what happens in year 3 or 4 if you execute. Your increased income becomes normal. Your emergency fund is boring. Your investments are accumulating. Maybe you have 50 or 75,000 invested. That's real money. The returns from that money start covering real expenses. You're not free yet. You can see the finish line. This is the moment where poor people become wealthy people psychologically. It's not about a number. It's about understanding the system and knowing you're already inside it. Some people will say this glorifies hustle culture. It doesn't. It just tells the truth about what building wealth from zero actually requires. Most people won't do this. They'll keep one job, complain about money, and wonder why others get ahead. That's their choice. But if you want wealth in a reasonable time frame, you have to do things most people won't. Work more, learn more, think differently. Starting from zero in 2026 feels impossible if you're actually at zero. I get it. But impossible is just a word for something that hasn't been done yet. Thousands of people every year go from genuinely nothing to genuine wealth. They do it by understanding this order. Income is the foundation. Cash flow is the accelerant. Investments are the multiplier. They stop comparing themselves to people who had different starting points. They build credibility, skill, and confidence by doing it themselves. That's not luck. That's not inheritance. That's not a trick. That's a skill. And skills can be learned. The wealthy people you see aren't smarter than you. They aren't genetically better with money. They just did the boring work. They learned. They built income. They managed cash. They stayed consistent. And eventually compounding caught up. You can do the exact same thing. The only difference is whether you start now or wait for a moment that never comes. If you want to learn more about how to stand out from average and build wealth exponentially, like this video and subscribe to this channel for more.